Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about finding the slopes of lines, which should be Algebra 1 review. You should also be able to use slope to identify parallel and perpendicular lines. That part will be new. If you can all take out a piece of paper to take some notes on this topic, that would be fantastic. We will then work from the 3-3 worksheets in your packet, so you will also want your packet. When we discussed the pretest, we talked about different formulas, and the first formula that we're going to need is slope. Slope formula is when you take 2 points and you subtract your y's, divide and subtract your x's. We usually write that as y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Just like distance and midpoint formula, your points will always be x1, y1, and x2, y2. So by substituting in points, you can find your slope. Now when we deal with slopes, those help us identify parallel and perpendicular lines. Slopes we like to think of as rise over run, so they tell you the angle that your lines are increasing or decreasing at. Well, parallel lines have equivalent slopes, or the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if you see two equations, y equals 3x plus 1 and y equals 3x plus 5, we know those two are parallel because their slopes are the same value. Okay, so they're increasing at the same rate. Perpendicular lines, however, instead of having the same slope, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. For example, if we know one line has a slope of 1/2, the second line, if it's perpendicular, or the perpendicular slope, would be -2 over 1. So flipping that fraction and changing the sign. We also have a few things we want to mention about slope. Remember, you can have a slope of 0, and that gives you a horizontal line. You can have an undefined slope, which gives you a vertical line. Undefined slopes are dividing by 0, and a slope of 0, 0 would be in your numerator. So when you're simplifying, be careful of those two things. Remember, undefined and 0 slopes will show up. So perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Parallel lines have the same slope. If you go to your 3-3 study guide, they have given you, oops, wrong page. There we go. Page 33. They have given you some examples here. Oh, I'm sorry, 35. We'll do a few of these together. On this page, you only need to complete the odd problems. So let's look at number 1 together. If we're just given 2 points, we want to use our slope formula. So what I always do first is label those points. x1, y1, x2, y2. Then we're just substituting those into a formula. So y2 minus y1 is 8 minus 0 divided by x2 minus x1 negative 2 minus 0. Now simplify your numerator and denominator. 8 minus 0 is 8. Negative 2 minus 0 is negative 2. So this results in a slope of negative 4. Again, this should be Algebra 1 review. So you go ahead and complete 3 and 5. Down below, you are looking for the slope from the line. So remember, when we're looking at just a line, we're always counting our rise over run. So in number 8, they're asking for line CD. Well, first we have to find line CD. So I'll highlight it here. We go from negative 2, 2 to 0, negative 2. So if we're going to do our rise over run, this is where making that right angle box comes in handy. How far are we going over, and how far are we going down to get to our next point? Remember, rise is always first, so think, how far did I have to go up? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I had to go to the left 2, which is 1, 2, which is a negative direction. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So the slope of CD is negative 2. You can also pull the points from that graph and substitute them into your slope formula to find the slope as well. Let's do one more of those. If I want to find the slope of AE, well, AE is horizontal. So did we rise at all? No, but we did run. So if we didn't rise up or down, that means our slope is 0. All right, and one more. Let's find BM. So there, again, you're using rise over run. From B down to M, our rise was down 2, and our run was over to the right 4, which is positive. So 2 over 4, which reduces to negative 1/2. If you flip to the second side of your study guide, we now want to use that information to determine whether lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So if they're parallel, remember their slopes should be the same. If they're perpendicular, we should have opposite reciprocals. And if they're neither, if they're just two random lines, we won't see any relationship between them. It also asks you to graph each line to verify your answer. You do not need to do that. All right. So number 1, we want to find the slope of MN. So I need to use points M and N first. So label them, and then let's put into our slope formula. We have y2 and y1. So y2 is 4 minus y1 is 3 divided by 2 minus 0. 4 minus 3 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 2. That's as reduced as we can get it. Next, I want to find the slope for RS. Well, x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to subtract, so 4 minus 1 divided by 8 minus 2. 4 minus 1 gives me 3. 8 minus 2 gives me 6. If I reduce that, it reduces to 1/2. Well, I notice those slopes are exactly the same. So if you have the same slope, your lines have to be parallel. Okay, so that's what you would do for 3 as well. And then moving down, we want to graph lines with certain conditions. So number 5, if it has a slope of 4 and passes through the point 6, 2, well, you first need to graph the point and then use your rise over run. So if we start at 6, 2, and since my slope is 4, I'm going up 4 to the right 1. And you can connect your line. We also have one that is passing through 8, 5, and it's perpendicular to AG that has 2 different points there. So let's find 8, 5 first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, in order to find a perpendicular line, we need to know the slope of AG. So x2, y2, x1, y1. We put that into our formula, negative 2 minus 6 over negative 1 minus negative 5. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. And when we see that double negative, it's plus a positive. So negative 1 plus 5 is 4, which reduces to negative 2. Since I want a perpendicular slope, I want the reciprocal, so 1/2, and the opposite sign. Excuse me. So the perpendicular slope would be positive 1/2, which means from this point we're going up 1 to the right 2, or down 1 and to the left 2. If they ask for a parallel line, you're using the same slope. So that is all the new information. Please complete the odd problems on this worksheet, study guide, and the page before it, as well as the skills practice. And when you're done with that, you can work on your city designer project.